hard for me to even know what I enjoy. I know that sounds weird, right? But there's just like there's something inside of
Very common, not
oh,
weird.
yeah, I don't yeah, you think so? You think that's common?
I think it's very common. Aren't sure what you like? Don't know what moves you? You're not alone. Listen to Natasha and I as we talk on the next Harness the Power of Planning podcast, coming up now.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to our Thursday morning chat. If you're joining us on the Pacific Coast, it's 9:30 a.m. And if you're on the East Coast, it's 12:30 a.m. And we're here every Thursday to chat with you live about what's going on in our world, what might be going on in your world, and to help you prioritize yourself, save time, and achieve your goals. That's what we're all about. I'm Natasha.
I'm Allegra. And if this is the first time you're joining us, we are authors of 4 books that are all about helping moms and caregivers prioritizing themselves, saving time, and accomplishing their goals. And we teach basically productivity and life design and habit formation, but all through the lens of being a caregiver because we know how hard it is to get anything done just for yourself when other people have a claim on your time.
It's hard, y'all. It's hard. It really can be. It can be super hard.
And let me show you our bouquet of books, actually. And also, if you want to listen to the audio only version, if you're watching the video and you see our lovely bouquet of books, then you can also catch the audio version anywhere you get your podcast. Look for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, and you will find it there. So, our topic today is something we say a lot
Hmm.
in general, and it's stop shoulding on yourself.
Just stop it. And is it just a second ago you said sometimes that can really be hard, right? Really be hard to prioritize yourself. And that this is one of the one of the top reasons I would say, my own experience, is the shoulding,
Yes,
is the shoulding, you know.
the cultural shoulding,
Mhm.
right, that we've been raised with and just kind of indoctrinated with.
Yeah, internalized shoulding.
Yes, the shoulding from friends and family. It's a lot, and we talk in our life design course, which is called Harness the Power of Planning. Our first 3 sessions are all about getting up and out from under that shoulding because it's really powerful. Sometimes I would say most of the time, you might not even realize that you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah, easily, right? Because it's like that internalized thing, right? It's that thing where it's like you don't even know it's the water that you're swimming in, like try to explain water
Exactly.
to a fish, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
these
What
things
does wet feel like to a fish, right?
right. 100%. Yes,
That's the
exactly.
euphemism. You're like, "Wet to a fish?
Yeah,
You
they
wouldn't
don't
know."
get they're like, "What do you mean wet?" Um, yeah, and so these are things that are just internalized, inherent. They're just something that like they're part of our operating systems potentially. Or even it could just come as those guilty feelings, the guilt, it's something that you're aware of, like, oh, I want to do this thing, but I feel if I don't do that, I feel so guilty if I don't do it, right? So it could be a little bit more obvious where it's not just like an automatic thing, but if you have like that feeling of like, I really want to do A, but if I don't do it, if I don't do B, so and so will be mad at me, or I won't be a good fill in the blank worker, mom,
Right.
wife, so those things super hard though to unravel or get yourself out from underneath.
Or even to make yourself aware of it. So I'm gonna give you a really simple example that just happened recently. A friend of mine gave me these I l lovely eyeshadow sticks, and I have found that the limited makeup that I wear, I prefer it to be in stick form. I don't like powders, I don't like liquids, I don't like liners. Sticks tend to work for me, but I've never enjoyed eyeshadow, you know? And inevitably, when I put it on myself, I would take it off. And so she gave me these sticks, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try," because she gave me these sticks, and I asked a friend of mine who's much better at makeup than I am, "Would you give me a tutorial?" And she said, "Sure, no problem. Like, what do you wanna do?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I wanna do." And she's like, "Well, find some pictures of what you wanna do, and then we can do it." And so I hit upon the idea of trying some of the filters
Oh
on
yeah.
to
Hmm.
see, like, what do I like, how it looks on me, and you know what? I didn't like any of them.
Well, those filters can be really, you know what I mean, like you can't dial in the intensity of a at least the last time I used one, which was a
I
long time.
mean, there's so
But
many now, and there
right.
are some that you can dial up and dial
You
down
can.
as,
Okay,
like
see, yeah, it's been a minute
yes.
since I've tried one of those.
Yes, and, I think the thing with me look, I could go deep into this and say I think the thing is just, like, because I'm already dark, that smoky eye just it's just too much. It's just too much going on in terms of darkness. I feel like I look like I should belong on The Matrix, or something. But anyway, the bottom line was, why am I feeling like I need to do this even? Like, even if I learn this skill, when am I gonna actually use it? Because, again, it's just I'm not drawn to it, and I realized that to a certain degree, I was shitting on myself. I felt like, "Well, a girl should have a smoky eye in her back pocket." Like, but why?
I am
Why should
terrible, Allegra. I'm terrible with makeup too. Like, I just feel like whenever I try to attempt something like that, I'm just like, I look like I gave myself a black eye. You know, and I'm
Yeah,
just kind of like, I'm just like it looks like somebody punched me.
I
I
have
mean, but
my I
I
have
am
my, like,
also
to go.
admittedly not skilled in this area. And I've tried. Have you ever tried a cat eye? Like to try to do a cat eye?
Yes, I've tried it all, and I'm like, I feel like I'm wasting so much time. I don't even necessarily I'm like, I don't even care for the payoff, if you will.
Hmm.
So why was I doing it? And I realized that I was just shitting on myself, and I had a similar experience when I, cut my hair super short, and I I just don't like short hair on myself. I'm a long hair girl, I'm a no eyeshadow girl, and I'm just gonna embrace it.
Embrace it. Yeah. Hmm.
Embrace it. There's no reason not to. So,
That's
those
so
are
funny.
what?
I'm just saying that's so funny. Like when we kind of just know, like what it takes to sometimes just go like, okay, I'm just like not into this. You know what I
I'm
mean? It's
not into it.
right, and
And
it's like, and that's okay. Like, and if you're into makeup, awesome, great, awesome.
yes,
We're not
exactly.
we're not yucking your yum with makeup at all
No, not at
because
all.
we both happen to be unskilled in that area, you know.
Yes.
But but you're if you're
But
making
skincare, oh
up,
my god, you hear me
totally
talk
into
about
that,
skincare.
totally into skincare, totally
Yes, I
skincare,
love that.
skin.
So,
Funny, my
ye
husband had a similar thing with IPAs, India Pale Ales, beers.
mm.
About a year ago, he's like, you know what? I just don't like them. They're too hoppy. You know, he's like, because everybody, especially there's like a whole trend and the craft
Right,
beers and
right.
like, oh, you
They're
gotta try
in.
IPA. It's so hoppy and stuff. He's like, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's bitter, tastes gross. I don't want to drink it. Like, I know it's
Yes.
cool to drink it and to be like really into it and stuff. And he's like, I don't like it. And I was like, yeah, babe, you go. Like, he's just like, I'm not drinking them anymore. Funny enough, since then he has found a couple IPAs where he's like, oh, it's not that bad, not that bad. But like yeah, it's really funny. Like with that same kind of thing where he was just kind of like, I know it's cool and all the hipsters want you to drink an IPA or
Yeah,
whatever, but he's like, I don't want to drink it anymore. And so, yeah, these are good things to know about yourself, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
So Natasha has an amazing tip or or I would say guideline that she's learned
guideline.
for herself about shitting
Mhm.
on herself.
Right. And like I am a chronic over busier. Like I get myself I'm addicted to busyness. Now I've since Allegra and I have been working as a team in BYWD, my busyness factor has shifted into having prioritizing things that are important to me, right? And I'm not always great at it because a lot of times my busyness is born out of, oh, this person invited me, so I'm a yes. This person invited me to this, I'm a
Right,
yes.
FOMO, right?
Right, FOMO, and just like because I
And you
like that,
just enjoy it.
I do, right? Like so, like if somebody invites me to like a great thing. It may be across town, and I'm at another event somewhere else. Like I'm just like, oh, I like that person. I want to go, right? Like
Mhm.
that's my initial pull, and I
Right.
would often say I could squeeze that in. I could squeeze it in. I could squeeze it in. If I leave that thing early and there's zero traffic whatsoever, I can make it on time. You know what I mean? Like, which we live in
And
Los
there's
Angeles.
0
That's
traffic ever.
that's a fantasy. Zero traffic, you know. So I would often say, I could squeeze that in. I could squeeze it in. I could squeeze it in. And now I've realized that if the word squeeze comes across the ticker tape of my mind, or I say squeeze out loud, that's a full stop. And the general thing is full stop default to no, I can't do it, right? Because
Mhm.
um just because like just because I can do it. And at
Right.
very least, this doesn't mean it's a hard, fast rule that I say no to the new invitation. What I then look at is what of these options aligns most with what I value, what's a priority. And sometimes the priority is I just want to, it's been a busy weekend. I want to just sit on the couch, I know,
Mhm.
on Sunday afternoon and just chill out, because that busyness has trickled out to my kids, and my youngest is a total homebody, and he doesn't like, if you do more than two things on a weekend, like he's just like, whoo, he wants to tap out, and so I have to also to consider, and so that has helped me too to go like, hey, it's okay, like sitting
Yeah.
around for a moment and restoring yourself, that is super valid, right? So for
Yes.
me, the word squeeze is a full stop, and at least an evaluation of the options now, and deciding what what works and what aligns with my values, and what
Yeah.
aligns with what we're trying to prioritize as a family. And sometimes it means going ahead and declining the original offer, and readjusting. But most times it's about kind of saying no to the new thing because
And we should on ourselves that way, right? Like, I was
Mhm,
invited, I should attend this person's party, I should do this
mhm.
thing, and, I feel that because I am not a big party person. I will frequently say no to parties, and, a couple decades later, my husband now is like, "How come we don't get invited to those parties anymore?" And I was like, "'Cause we've always said no, because we just it's just not our thing."
Mhm.
And so, give yourself permission to do to make more room for the things that you do enjoy. Like, I would rather have a quiet dinner with people that I like. I would rather work on a puzzle. I would rather, do something creative for myself. That's just how I'm wired. And, like, I've been good about not shitting on myself about some things, like, earlier. Like, we all have the things that are sort of lower hanging fruit, and it might take a while for you to figure out the things that are like, what does wetness feel like for the fish, right?
Yeah.
Because those are the things that are so close to you, it can be really, really hard. But, we think the reason why we tell people that we recommend stop shitting on yourself is it goes back to this whole idea of prioritizing yourself. And we always use the analogy of being on an airplane and how they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first, because you're not any good to anybody if you're passed out in the aisle. However, we would go one step further and say, put on your oxygen mask first because you are worthy of being alive.
Right. That in and of itself, right? Yes, great, be available for others, sure. But that's not
Yes.
just it's not just in order to do that. It is also you're just worthy you're worthy of oxygen. it's
Yes.
it's okay to put it on yourself first, just cuz. Yeah.
And there's so many things when you become a parent or a caregiver that you have to do to
Right.
keep another human being alive, that it can be hard to get out of that mode about everything, and then suddenly have to do and should do become your whole life. So,
Mhm.
I really noticed this when my child was around 5 years old, because that's sort of the age where you stop being so worried about just their physical
Yeah.
aliveness.
You're not wiping butts anymore. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like yeah, you're freed up a little bit. Mhm.
You're freed up a little bit, and so, if you're at that stage where you're feeling maybe a little your child is over 5 and you're feeling a little dissatisfied with how you're spending your time, take a moment and think about, are you shitting on yourself? Maybe write down how you're spending your time, and is that how you want to be spending your time, or are you just doing that because of habit? Like, for me, I homeschool my child, and I was so used to that 0 to 5 age just kind of constantly being on, that when we started homeschooling into grade school, I would sometimes go to 7 PM homeschooling her, and then I would have no time for anything else, let alone, like, dinner was like, "Blah," you know? And my husband said to me, "Why don't you just stop homeschooling at 4 PM or 3 PM or whatever?" Like, he's like, "You
Right.
don't have to
Like
go."
school, right?
Yeah,
Your kid
exactly,
leaves
like
kids leave school at like 2:30, right? Boom.
right, you don't
Over.
have to go until 7, and the thing was I was really allowing her to just kind of blow our schedule out of the water,
Mhm.
because I had been used to the 5-year-old where they just kind of run the house a little bit, right? And I was like, "Oh, okay, she can understand better that mommy has other things she has to do,
Mhm.
and, and also she could understand a little bit better, like, it was becoming unpleasant spending that many hours trying
Right.
to get this
Trying
thing
to rein her
done."
in or what, yeah,
Y
absolutely. And kids, and as we, if you've done any kind of um learning around parenting, right? The kids love structure. They might rail against structure, right? But they thrive inside of it. And it is, it's important for you. And think of what you're modeling for your daughter too, to say like, hey, look, mommy's got things to do, and mommy's stuff is important to do too.
Yes.
And they do hit a developmental milestone too, where they kind of want to start pushing away a little bit around that age too, where they start thinking like, I'm my own person. And so
Right.
um but
Yes,
that's
but.
interesting. Despot.
No,
Yes.
no, yes, but. Yes, you're your own person, but.
I thought you said despot, and that makes me laugh so hard. That makes me laugh so hard that that's what I heard. I can't even tell you. Yes, but. Yes, but.
Yes, but.
That makes
Because
me
what
laugh really hard because that's what we called my son. Brother. We
Oh,
called,
that's
we called him the little despot because for a while there, because he did run the show until we
No,
kind of
they
watched
do.
him
I
lose.
mean, they do because they have needs that just, uh, equate with them being kept alive.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you're a new parent, we for those who are listening via podcast, I just had to take a moment and breathe and, place my hands together in prayer position. Like, that is a rough time, man. My husband and I, on our child's first birthday, spontaneously turned to each other, high-fived, and said, "She's still alive," at the exact same time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That first birthday is not for the kid. It's for the parent who made it for that for it's like everybody come together. We kept them alive for a year. We made it. We made it to that milestone. And
Yeah.
it is because the 1-year-old is not going to remember that. That party is
No,
not for them. It is for
no.
you.
Those whole first 5 years are not for them, it's for you, right? It's like you get the joy of
Every
enjoying
hmm
the baby toddler, which is so enjoyable, it really is,
It
but
really
it is taking I mean, when I had friends who had babies after me, I'd say like, "Okay, see you in a couple years." I know how it gets, like, feel free to just wrap your life up, in that
so
child.
that's a time where the should is like the shoulding is a like literal like life and death situation.
Life and death, exactly, and that's
Yeah.
why it's so hard to get out of that
Mhm.
because you've done it for 5 years. It's a habit. That shoulding is
For
a habit,
sure.
and
For
so you're kind of having to relearn what it is to have another person in your life that might not rely on you anymore for staying alive, and, thinking about your own especially if you're feeling any sort of dissatisfaction. Like, if you love it, you're like, "Hey, this is my calling."
Great.
Fantastic.
100%. Yeah, we're not, by the way, we're not crapping on parenting.
We're not shitting on you.
Right, we're not shitting on parenthood here, per se, because we're both parents.
Highly
But
and highly I think everyone who knows us would say we're highly involved parents, right?
yes,
We
for sure. Yeah. And the idea that that the kids have like some kind of autonomy and say inside of their lives, even when they're younger, is something that we try to foster, which also maybe kind of like bites you in the ass when you try to then do homeschooling and you're just kind of like, oh, I'm letting her have choices, but oh my gosh, it's 7 o'clock now, you know what I mean? And so, yeah. So
yeah.
all of that to say, the thing about the shitting is the to parse it out, like to go, if you're feeling guilty about it, that's a really good red flag. If you hear yourself saying, and in my world,
Or resentful.
yeah,
Guilty or
that
resentful.
guilty, resentful, anything that just kind of just take a moment with it. It doesn't mean that you have to now suddenly say no to that thing, but just take a moment and inquire into that feeling. Why are you feeling that way? Is this really what you want? Or, are you again shooting on yourself, or is society shooting on you? And, for me, that word squeeze was a revelation. This just really kind of came up into my world about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, where like I was like, wait a second, I say that word a lot. And then I caused myself a lot of consternation around trying to
Does
make
anyone else call you
that.
on it besides me?
I don't don't know if I've declared it to many people other than you and
Okay.
my husband and my friend Carrie. She 100%. I've told her about it, and she's just like squeezing it. Like she's
Right.
also
You
somebody who
just said
calls me on it.
squeeze.
She's like, I heard you say squeeze in your head. She's like, I could hear your thoughts. Yeah, she's definitely somebody who calls me out on it too. But what it is a full stop, right? And she just want to put that in. So resentment, guilt, saying the word squeeze, or that kind of thing is really a moment to reflect. And we're not giving you a prescription on what you should do, of course not. But it is a moment to reflect because you may very well not even know you're shoulding on yourself.
Yes. And, another thing for me that has helped with this is, so Natasha knows that one of my words for 2024 is intuition, and just listening to that little voice of, "Am I enjoying this?" And
Hmm.
again, enjoying is not like, "Oh my god, it's like a party," which is not anyway something that I particularly enjoy anyway, but it can be that little voice of like, for me, my mornings starting it quietly with some ambient background sounds. I say sounds because it's like a gong. It's not music, with a candle lit. I feel so good when I do that. However, this past week, I was listening to a really interesting book, and I was like, "You know what? I just wanna listen to the book. I'm gonna listen to the book while I'm doing my skincare." And literally, it was like my brain was at war. It was like part of my brain was enjoying the book, but the part of my brain that craves that calm in the morning
Mm.
was dissatisfied.
Hmm.
And so I was like, "Oh, like, I just am not enjoying this as much as my morning routine of doing the other thing." And then I go back to the other thing, and I literally feel just, like, joyful and lifted up. And so think about the things that make you feel joyful and lifted up, and know that that's part of why you're here, is to do those things. So that's my little tip for, is the water wet or not wet? It's like, no, I enjoy listening to a book, but there was just a little bit of not joyful. This is not where I should be spending my time right now.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, and I'm going to speak for myself in saying that, like, sometimes it's hard for me to even know what I enjoy. I know that sounds weird, right? But there's just like, there's something inside of,
Very common, not weird.
yeah, I don't, yeah, you think so? You think that's common?
I think it's very common
I
because the
don't,
shooting is so strong. I mean, I'm 50. I've never liked eyeshadow. Why am I thinking now I'm gonna like eyeshadow all of a sudden?
right. Yeah, I don't know. I hear you, right? There is definitely, yeah, there's definitely, yeah, it's a weird thing. What's weird about it is it's weird to say out loud that, like, I may not even know what I like, right? Which is odd, strange, it seems like. Anyway, um, to think like, how do you not know what you like? Like, you either like it or you don't, and there's a multi-layer thing we're not gonna get into, like pulling apart my psyche and getting into that. But I do have a tough time identifying sometimes. And often after I've done the thing, I was kind of like, oh, I didn't like that. How come I didn't know I didn't like that? How come I didn't know, like, 3 weeks ago when I was asked to do that, that I would probably not like it, right? So it's taken a while for me to go, to have enough of those experiences to go, okay, the last time you did something like this, you wound up not liking it. Just
Mhm.
remember that, because I also happen to have, like, have a one of those, just I forget, that, like, hey, childbirth really was hard. Your body forgets that. You're like, let's have another one, right? Um,
Right, you
there's
don't have, like, a
biology,
long memory when it comes to things you don't like,
right?
which is probably great in some ways, but makes
Yeah.
it
So,
harder
so
to.
if you have trouble, sometimes you may not even know you don't like something or like something. That is a thing. That's a real thing. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some space to explore that. I used to think that I should just already know, and I might not know, right? There's that shoulding, right? I
Right.
should know what I like. So therefore, I'm saying yes to it because I must like it. Or so, it's just this quick fire of, like, decision making or impulsivity almost,
Mhm.
that help taking pause and checking in will help with you understanding where that is coming from. And is it from a should place? Is it from a genuinely, a genuine enjoyment place? So it does take a little bit of like reflection, and there are things that, you just like, and there are things, you don't like, but there are things that you may need to pause and just look into.
Check in with yourself, right? Your
Yeah.
intuition.
Yeah. It's never a bad thing to be mindful around something or slow down around it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. Natasha and I have an interview for another podcast that we're doing, but we always enjoy having these chats. And if you're watching the recording, feel free to comment just like you would on any post wherever you're watching. We will see it and we will happily respond.
And we'll see you back here next Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern.
Thanks for joining us for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen.